welcome to the July edition of Scoop Manchester. I'm Liz Brown Swanson. So excited to finally be here at my apartment in Manchester by the Sea with my favorite co-host of Scoop Manchester, the publisher of the Manchester Cricket, Erika Brown, who is now downtown Erika Brown, because you are now coming to us from the brand new cricket location, 11 Beach Street, right across the street from me at 4 Beach Street. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thanks. I think it's so funny that we're doing a Zoom call and you're like right over there.
We're across the street. We're still practicing social distancing for now. This is the one and only, because we're going to be back together, hopefully doing cricket TV in your very large new cricket studio.
Yeah, you can see, I mean, I haven't really cleaned up around here. We literally moved in like 3 days ago. So we're kind of finding our way here. But it's funny, you've been back for 2 weeks, but I haven't seen you because you've been quarantining.
Yeah, so my deal was I flew in time for the 4th of July a few weeks back. And of course, everyone's like, you're really going to get on a plane. But you know, they take all the safety protocols. I felt pretty good about it. As you know, I had COVID back in March, so I felt a little strong. I've got antibodies, but came off that plane. I didn't want to be in 4 Beach working yet because I wanted to do the quarantining. But I got tested. I'm good to go. You'll see me downstairs in the store. You just moved in this past week. How's the move? Tell us about it.
Well, as you can see, I didn't really clean up and we're still in the middle of it. But I figured it's fine. We moved in a couple of days ago and I was really happy. We moved into the old yoga studio that was downtown. And so we kind of redid it. It's a better space for us. We're really excited. And as you know, I always said a local newspaper belongs downtown. It really does. So we're really excited. And then when we get through COVID, I'm hoping that people stop by, say hi, give us a scoop on what's going on.
Well, you're going to be right in the thick of it, right in the middle of town. And I'm so glad we're neighbors across the street from each other. But the excitement's in the air right now. Summer is here. You know, even despite COVID, there's a great energy to town. Talk about just sort of, I just got back, as you know, so give me a little scene setter, how you would describe life right now for the summer here.
Well, we're kicking in. We just had 4th of July, and you were here for it because you got here 2 weeks ago, but you were quarantining, but you were still able to sort of see what was going on. It was really quiet. I think it was quiet in all the towns, but one thing that was kind of nice was that the Burros Bikers, which is Scott Milne, you know, Becca Marsden, Rick Doucette, the Burros, Stu Thorne, of course. They met at, as usual. Usually they meet at about 8:30 or 9 o'clock at the end of Vine Street, and that's where they assemble and they do the old sort of antique bikes in the float and the parade. And this year they decided to do it. Betsy Milne, Scott Milne's wife, made everybody kind of 4th of July masks, and they all wore them and they all kind of shot through. The only thing is nobody from Bill Burros' family was able to come up because they usually come up every year from down south. I believe it's South Carolina they live in. And because of COVID, they weren't able to come up. But Bill Burros started the tradition back in the 60s. And when I was looking through our archive to find out, get history on this, I realized that, did you know that Manchester, you should know this actually because you were in one of the stories.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, Manchester back in the day used to have a special category in the parade for antique bikes and carriages for kids.
Yes.
And so this tradition actually grew out of that. So we no longer have that, but now we have the Bill Burros bikes, and they did it, and it kind of felt good because it was a little like being back. It was a little normal. It felt normal.
The patriotic spirit too in the town. I know there was what they did was a home parade, right? So everybody was decorating. This was in the paper. How did that all go? I know there was, I think, 30 plus homes in town that really got into the spirit and decorated their houses.
Yes, there was sort of a flipped parade this year, and so instead of the floats being the thing that move and we as the audience watch them and judge them and they get winners, instead the watchers, the viewers, were the ones who did the moving. You were given a map online. Cheryl Marshall and the rest of the crew at the July 4th committee, they had set up the categories, and a lot of houses, they just did a great job decorating them, and they did a fantastic job.
Well, for anyone in town that didn't have the chance to go through town, they need to go on the cricket.com. You've got a lot of the photos of the houses, right, that were decorated. And I have to say, one of my favorites got an honorable mention, the Then and Now house on Bridge Street.
Yeah, it's the Tappan House, and it's on Bridge Street as you're going out of town. It's on the left as you're going to Beverly Farms. But it's a very, very old house, and Kitty Weaver sent these in and showed a picture of the house decorated for the 250th anniversary of the town. And then again, she mimicked it, and almost exactly for the 375th this year. And it was really interesting. I don't know if you remember, Kitty Weaver is the one who, her great-great-grandfather, her great-great-grand-uncle, I'm sorry, was one of the negotiators of the Navajo Nation, the original Navajo Nation. And she actually got national news attention for donating that original, one of only 2 left. One's in the Smithsonian, and she donated it to the Navajo Nation Museum. So that's her. And the picture of the house is, the 2 houses is like pretty remarkable. And the person, the family though that won the actual parade was the O'Malleys on Norwood Ave. And I think they take the prize for most committed, because they took their entire fence, the picket fence in front of their house, and they painted it red, white,
right? They painted it red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the patriotic spirit lives on, and hopefully in 2021 we'll see us marching through town again.
Now, one thing that was funny that happened on 4th of July, it's actually near the Tappan House, what we were just talking about, on Bennett Street. We had gotten a call a week before from about Valerie Roble on Bennett Street. And she wanted to call us about her mother, who was turning 90, and they had a backyard barbecue, very safe, social distancing backyard barbecue, because her mom, Nancy Roble, was turning 90. So we went over there to take her picture. She obviously did not know about it. It was a surprise, because when we got there, she did not want to have her picture taken at all. But we ended up kind of warming up to her, and the whole family got together and encouraged her. We got a great shot of her turning 90. So it was really
amazing. 90 ago, Mrs. Roble, and on the 4th of July.
I'm not sure entirely if that was the day of her birthday. I think it was, because that's when they celebrated it. But nevertheless, we had a headline that said "Firecracker Birthday Girl."
So that was exciting day for the 4th. And did you have a good day on the 4th of July?
I spent it with family, and we did go to Singing Beach, and it was a perfect beach day, actually. And it was really nice. It was beautiful weather. It was almost like magic. I think magic for everybody. Yeah.
And the beach has been magic. That's a good topic now to cover, because it is residents only still in town as we continue to have all these safety protocols. How do you think that's been going and received? And where are we going with this phase 3 reopening with beaches and our public spaces right now?
Well, I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, our numbers have held fast. I think now we're into our 3rd week with 20 cases. Essex is very similar, and Essex has a similar kind of posture for how it's trying to regulate its public spaces that we've had, and they've been at 24. So our general area has stayed really, I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah, good. Kitchen table.
But yeah, but I think that there's been a lot of discussion, as you know, pretty heated, about public spaces, the beach, residents only versus non-residents only. And then that also affects downtown, and the whole idea of supporting the businesses and in a measured way, trying to encourage people to come, but to come safely. And that's been a big thing. I know that for the downtown businesses, the town, and this is related to the beach, the town opened up Masconomo Park, the parking lot there, which is typically residents only. And they opened it up to non-residents in order to kind of stimulate and encourage people to come to town, but they limited it to 3 hours. Otherwise you get a ticket. And they did that precisely to discourage people from trying to come and kind of sneak on the beach.
Right. Well, yeah. I know because you're weekly at the Board of Selectmen meetings, and you're in touch with the business community as the publisher of the paper, as well as, active with the Cape Ann Chamber. And I really appreciate how much you are trying to weave everybody together so that we can all come out of this and doing better. And I think that everyone's trying their best. I know, like right now, if you go through downtown, initially the restaurants now have the outdoor seating. This because it took up some of the parking spaces. There was concern, but at the same time, they've opened up parking at Masconomo. So we're everyone's navigating this. And I think in general, I think that we're all going in the right direction. That's what I'm seeing as a business owner as well. We have been doing well since we reopened our doors. You know, it has been more local business trickling in, which has been great. You know, now that local residents can come back in our shop. So I think it's good, and, you know, one step at a time. And I think the Board of Selectmen is listening to our retailers about parking. That seems to be our number one concern right now, to make sure people can get into our shops.
It's an important concern. I mean, it's important.
And they're going to make lines, I guess. That's one issue too, like making it so that it's clear where people can park actually when they're in town. I know, right?
Well, they've done the lines. They've repainted the lines within the last several days. So that's actually happening right now. And you can see that sort of coming into line. I think you're right. There's no good solution. There's no perfect solution for everyone. You know, the restaurants are a little, you know, it's one of those things where, you know how they say when everyone's a little unhappy, that's probably you're in a good place. That's kind of what it feels like. It's kind of the theme, because the truth is, at first, the restaurants really were shocked, you know, by this shutdown. And it really took them by surprise. They could only do takeout, and takeout was a difficult model to switch to. At the same time, though, retailers, many of them had to shut down entirely. Right. Now, they also did their equivalent, and you know this, they did their equivalent of takeout, you know, curbside delivery or outside. There's some businesses that leaned into technology. I think that Style Snoop is a great example of a business that was already did a lot of their business through social media. So they were able to adapt pretty easily, but I think that you're right. In the end, coming out of this, the secret is people need to communicate, and they need to communicate in a very real way. And we hosted a call last week, the chamber did, for, you know, the selectmen, public safety, and businesses to all come together, because it's that game of telephone where people don't know what, you know, what's being said, and they hear about it, where they get inaccurate information. And right now, it's not the time for inaccurate information. Everybody needs to come together, and everyone, you know, everyone needs to support each other. And it's great that local people are shopping downtown. And really, they need to continue that. They need to continue that.
They need to shop in our stores and then go down the driveway next to Marie's at 11 Beach Street and say hello to you in the cricket.
Yeah.
Talk about other news making headlines in the paper, things coming out of town hall as well, that you might want to let bring people up to speed on.
Well, I think we have a series of things. I think one thing that didn't come out of town hall, but I think is interesting, and you're going to love this. Nate Berkowitz, who's a resident, his mother-in-law is Sally Bear. I hate to say it that way because we love her. She's very, very involved with the auxiliary at the VFW hall. So they, not VFW, I'm sorry, the American Legion. But anyway, Nate is her son-in-law, and he and his father-in-law have decided to start the fishing derby up again. They're going to go for that. Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, the fishing derby, if you remember, was probably a tradition, started about maybe 20 years ago. And it went for probably about 15 years. It kind of ran out of steam because some of the key people who ran it left town. Mm-hmm. So he's going to bring it up again. He wants to bring it up in a limited fashion. I think that's going to make people feel really, really good.
Moving on, one thing as we were going back, as we talk about life in downtown and business, is the fact that the chamber is talking about bringing back or continuing on the Festival by the Sea. I know you've been involved with that. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And you actually asked about the Board of Selectmen meeting, and there's a little interesting connection there. Yes, Ken Reel, who is the CEO of the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, he really started talking about bringing back the Festival by the Sea about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And when he started it, it shows you just how in real time things kind of are changing with COVID. When he brought it up at first, it was very much like a tentative, let's wait and see. And he's been talking to the Board of Selectmen. He's been talking to Greg Federspiel, the town administrator. He's been talking to Cheryl Marshall, the head of the Parks and Rec. And he's been kind of in a measured way. And it looks like, this is tentative, this week at the Board of Selectmen, he formally presented the idea of bringing it back in a limited fashion with fewer fewer tables of artisans over at Masconomo Park under a very large tent. And the timing of it would be the last weekend in August. And that would actually go with, and it would coordinate with the date that's being floated for the rescheduled Red, White, and Blue breakfast, which is typically the Saturday before the 4th of July. So it looks like we might recover sort of these real familiar things. And just so you know, it was well received by the Board of Selectmen. So they're going to decide on it in the next week or two, but it looked good. He didn't get any initial friction from them.
Well, of course, the fact, just alone, like, take a look at the 375th anniversary, such a milestone for our town, yet so much has had to be canceled. So again, for safety reasons. So I think as 375th, I don't know if they're going to bring any new events back into gear again. I don't know what's happening with that, but the fact that they're willing to bring Festival by the Sea to continue as a tradition, I think would be nice in a limited way, like you said, very safely. They're already doing concerts in the park again. And I know they'll be every Tuesday, and the cricket will be there for those. So they're figuring out how to make it happen. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, and I think that Cheryl Marshall, who we had come and visit with us on our last show, she really deserves a lot of credit because she has brought back in a limited fashion and a responsible fashion, music by the sea, music in the park at Masconomo Park. Summer playground for the kids is going to be back in a limited fashion. And then many of the other programs like Festival by the Sea, but the programs in the Parks and Rec, workout things and community classes and things. They're just bringing them back in different ways.
Mm-hmm. All right, Erika, I always ask you every Scoop Manchester to share one of your favorite stories recently. So what do you want to pick for this month in July?
It's always hard for me to pick something out. But this one is sort of the second part of a two-parter that was a follow-up of something that happened. It started last September when Senator Tarr gave Shirley Wilkinson, who's 91 years old, a citation at the Trask House at the Manchester Historical Museum. They had a ceremony for her because of her role with something called the U.S. Cadet Nurse Corps, which was essentially a recruiting effort for nurses to train nurses, young women, because of all the bleed of nursing for the war effort during World War II. Well, she was 17 years old on Singing Beach when she decided she would do it. And within 8 months, she was not only a nurse, but she was working at Beverly Hospital and actually became a nurse manager. She was asked, don't you think that was a little fast? And she said, no, it wasn't too fast. But anyway, it was signed into law by Governor Baker 2 weeks ago. And last week they announced it, and they're going to make statewide July 1st, national, sort of the state's, day for the U.S. Nurse Cadet Corps, which I think is so lovely. Yeah. It's a really, really important story. Just so you know, the U.S. Nurse Corps is the only corps that worked during World War II in the United States that still has not received veteran status. You can't, even though she served during the war and ably. Another thing, though, that isn't really my favorite story, but is important and is connected to World War II is Vinnie Terrell. He passed a couple weeks ago, and he was a really, really important World War II kind of resident in Manchester. He had an extraordinary story, something that actually made a national documentary. In January, we actually ran a piece on him where he was reunited with one of his, World War II fellow veterans 75 years later. Yeah, he was in the Battle of Okinawa and everything. Well, he passed at the age of 94 a couple weeks ago. So. Well,
he was very special. He was all Mr. 4th of July too. So he, was one of the founders of the 4th of July Red, White, and Blue breakfast. Actually, my dad was part of that committee back in the day. So we thank him for all his service, and because he was so dedicated to our town, and we will miss him.
Got some really special people.
I bounced from your favorite story, and I want to go on to your favorite picture in the cricket. So many great photos.
Yeah, I have to say, I have two. I always do that to you.
That's all right. I know.
And I can never make up my mind. Well, the first one is an obvious one. We just talked about it. It was by Betsy Milne, and it's a story of it's the picture of the bikers, the Bill Burros Bikers for 4th of July, and it's incredible. I love that picture.
Yes.
It's so sweet.
Right
And
on
there
the
is
page.
Rebecca Marsden. My favorite thing is she wears that shirt every year and has done it every year that she does her antique tandem bicycle with Rick Doucette. So God love her.
And what's your next picture? I hope you're going to
The next picture is actually something that I think a lot of people, it's almost a theme. It's that double rainbow. It's a double rainbow picture that was taken by a visitor to Manchester, actually. Vanessa Rogers was visiting from Oregon, and she took this picture, and she happened to see a guy in the foreground doing Tai Chi in the morning. It's just so perfect.
Yes.
And it's sort of this, we've had this weird weather in the last several weeks of fog and rainbows, but this really takes the cake.
Well, I have to say the weather has been spectacular so far this summer. I mean, coming back from California and I've been on the beach almost every day. The water's been tremendous. And I know you could probably use a dip after moving into your offices over there. I want to shift for a minute to talk more about you and the cricket, because this is exciting. You've been running the paper now for well over a year, a tradition in our town for over 100 years, right?
132, my friend.
Yes, and you've just done so much. I mean, just looking at the layout of the paper and where are you going with it next? I mean, you got the new offices now. What else are we gonna see happening? What's on your what do you got what are you planning?
Well, it's funny. I mean, COVID was definitely like a disruptor, but it's really interesting. I was afraid of what would happen with COVID. I said, oh my goodness, but readership has gone through the roof with COVID for all local newspapers. And that's a really wonderful thing, because the truth is the difference between good communities and bad communities is really a cohesiveness and an engagement, a sense of belonging. And a paper really is about that. So really that's my mission. That's my goal. That's what I love about the paper. But what's happened is we're now going to be focusing a lot of our resources and our attention online. I think I talk to you about this all the time because I ask your advice about it, which is, how does a 132-year-old paper feel online? That's a real interesting question to kind of crack. And I think we've started to get our groove on that. It's not something that bombards you with this sort of blinking ads that are obnoxious and not made for you. So we have a nice, clean, lovely paper online, and we're going to just really focus on that and then continue to do everything that we've done with the printed paper. I don't think it's going to get much larger. I thought we might want to do a large paper, but I think we're going to have a balance where the paper is going to be about things that are worth being in print. So,
and of course, we always focus as a Scoop Manchester, but you spend a lot of time covering news in Essex, and which is really important because we are a team.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I think over the next several months, I predict that we're now going to see a lot of activity around that's going to be focused on the school system. And that's something that Essex shares. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on housing, planning, affordability. Those are all themes that both towns share. Mm-hmm. So I think those are going to be things that, we're going to start to look at.
And we're just going to start to wrap it up. Any particular story you want to tease us with that, stay tuned for what's coming up next in the cricket? I don't know if you've got something to.
I don't know if it's going to come up in the next issue, but something that's happening now that's actually really important is there's a lot going on with the school board and with the school district and coming back. There was a big school district meeting, a committee meeting this past week, and it was a big one. And it was about, what is it going to be like getting back to school? What do budgets look like now? Because there's a lot of unanticipated expenses and a lot of things that the state has not committed that it would pay for yet. So they're really on edge about whether or not they're going to be able to invest in something or not invest in something because they don't know if they have the money. And the school budget is a major, major part of both towns' budgets. I mean, it's massive. And then the other thing is the whole issue of training around race and the whole outfall of the Black Lives Matter movement and sensitivity training, inherent bias,
Yes.
training around that. That's all being tackled at the school committee level. So that was a long answer, but that's going to be a big story.
Those are the stories you're following. And because you mentioned school board meeting, we didn't bring up the fact at all in terms of in the town. The town obviously had their meeting at the football field. There's been a changing of the guard, right, with the Board of Selectmen, with 2 new Board of Selectmen members. There's some vacancies also, right now with some of the committees. So a lot happening in downtown at the town hall, which is now reopened to the public.
It has reopened, but on a limited basis. It's not really, sort of come on in for everybody yet, but it is open. And I think they're just sort of doing that in a tentative way. Yes, the Board of Selectmen had its first meeting back since its new members. Ann Harrison, who was a long time, Ann Harrison has served on boards for, I want to say, decades. I mean,
She's on the finance committee.
She's on the finance committee forever, and she actually just created a vacancy on the finance committee and that's an appointed committee. So that's actually they have to fill her spot. John Round also joined. They had the first meeting with the 2 new members. So no more Arthur Steinert or Muffin Driscoll and those. I mean, Muffin served for 9 years, 3 terms.
Big thank you to those that served. These are volunteer positions. It's a hornet's nest. We are the Manchester Hornets, but when you, it can be thankless, but they served the best that they could. And in the end, I think that these are dedicated volunteers who do have the community's interest at heart. And
Absolutely.
She happens to be a classmate of mine, class of 80. Muffin Noonan, and she's working on planning our class of 80's 40th reunion, which of course, based on what's happening with COVID, is on hold, in terms of how big of a group can gather in September, but we're hopeful.
Yeah, so, I think it'll be great.
You'll be covering us in the cricket.
You got it.
All right, well, I think we've kind of touched base. July is still looking good, and we'll have, in the next show, we'll do inside the cricket. At
yes.
your offices. Again, we love having you downtown. We're neighbors.
I'd be like, come on over.
Yeah. Well, earlier as I was out front in front of Fort Beach thinking we could, do it for fun and we could scene set and show downtown and people eating on the street, but it's too loud out there, right? Because there's a lot of excitement on a Sunday driving through.
Yeah, a lot going on.
All right.
Because people are shopping local, which is what they should be doing.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you, Erika Brown, publisher of The Great Cricket. Don't forget to log on to thecricket.com, and I'm going to wrap it up here. Last word, anything else you want to tell the town before we wrap this up?
No, I'm just glad you're back.
All right, and I'll see you on Singing Beach, I hope. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Scoop Manchester. Thanks for joining. Be safe, and remember about the 3 W's you see in the cricket. Wash your hands, watch where you go, and wear a mask. We all want to be safe. Thank you again, and see you next time.